What happens to Duncan MacLeod when he finds himself surrounded by a whole bunch of civilians in a building that are being held captive by heavily armed killers with no Immortal to fight? There's no ancient rival, no centuries-old grudge, and obviously no quickening. Just one ruthless criminal who is willing to kill whoever stands in his way. Today we're going to be breaking down one of Highlander's most unique episodes to date, very early in the season, and it proves that Duncan MacLeod doesn't actually need to fight another Immortal to prove his valor, his honor, and his dedication to humanity. This episode is intense, it's emotional, and it features one of the most iconic heroic episodes ever. Welcome to my breakdown. This is episode 6 of season 1, and it's a bad day in Building A.
I'm Duncan MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod, born 400 years ago in the... well, no, not really. That was a TV show called Highlander. So, just listen to Rockin' at the Movies with me, Adrian Paul, and Shane comley-White, and you'll learn some interesting facts.
Hey everybody, my name is Shane comley-White, and you're with me at Rocking at the Movies, and today we're going to be breaking down another episode of the Highlander TV series, and I'm so excited to bring you this one because this one is actually quite unique and quite different. It's different compared to last week's episode, and the reason why I say that is because first of all, there's no Immortal, and second of all, it almost brings Duncan and Tessa back to a normality where things have kind of settled down and they are going around their life or on with their life as if nothing else matters, like the normal everyday, day-to-day what you and I go through. And they bring us to a courthouse. Now, it's actually quite funny because you see a little bit of banter and a little bit of wit that comes from Duncan and Tessa, who's a little bit fiery and a little bit frustrated because she's now been having to go to court to pay off some of her tickets for her parking or possibly speeding. Okay, so you never know which one she's got, but obviously they're talking about the parking tickets. Now, Duncan and it takes Tessa and Richie to the courthouse because now it's nice that Richie's going along with the flow for the everyday stuff that we deal with, and it's nice to see him being part of the family and part of the chores that everyone has to do. So what actually transpires from here starts off with a little bit of banter and a little bit of fun and moves to something that's quite intense and quite frustrating and quite dangerous for these two mortals. And the way it works is this. Tessa and Richie go into the courthouse. Now they go there and wait their turn to deal with their tickets that they've got to actually try speak to the judge about and try to get them paid off or whatever else it might be, whatever the process is in America. And what happens there is there's actually a group of criminals who are trying to figure out a way to get their leader out of jail, or actually get them to bypass the court system and actually be set free. And all the civilians who are in the courthouse actually get roped up in this whole saga that's happening at the moment. And at that moment, we see Duncan MacLeod sleeping in his car. He's just lying and waiting because he knows this is going to be a process. And I don't know if you know, I've been to court before to pay off tickets. I've been to court before to deal with a whole bunch of other things, and it takes forever. Where we are sitting right now, we could spend the entire day standing in the queue and might not even be able to reach the end of the queue to deal with what you got to deal with. So here's Duncan, he's sleeping in his car, such a beautiful car as well. If you do not know what that car is, please drop us a comment below because I know I love this car and I'm going to be talking about this as well as some of the other vehicles that he does drive throughout the series as well. And so yeah, drop us a comment, name the car that Duncan MacLeod is actually sleeping in at the moment, or just resting his eyes, let's say that. So yes, he then is drawn into the courthouse. Now, there's a whole bunch of things that lead up to this, but he's drawn into the courthouse and he needs to go figure out what's going on because he then starts to realize that there's actually something happening. The press starts arriving, the police start arriving, and he is caught up in something that he doesn't want to actually be part of because he doesn't want to be in the limelight like we've spoken about before. He does not want to be seen. He does not want the spotlight on him, so he has to kind of explain the immortal world, or he has to lie about the immortal world. He doesn't want to have to do either of them. He's just that kind of guy. So what happens is the gang leader, his name is Bryan Slade. He takes over the entire court. Well, it looks like a courtroom at the time, but the courthouse seems quite empty, luckily, except there's a janitor, and the janitor has his little granddaughter in the courthouse at the same time. And this is where the emotion actually comes into it. But what transpires right now is what I would say is the first time we've actually seen Immortal die without actually dying. The first time, other than, if you want to say, other than last week's episode where we see Richie stab Felicia. Does she die? We don't actually see her die, but she does get injured. However, this one, we see Duncan MacLeod get shot in the head and killed on camera, on CCTV, so the police and the SWAT team that are outside this building can actually see what's going on. That, to me, was like a bit of a shocker the first time I ever saw this. Because I didn't realize that, yeah, okay, fine, I was young, but I didn't realize that when you're an immortal, normal mortal weapons, such as a gun or a normal accident or whatever else it is, won't end your life. But it will injure you. It will kill you for a specific time frame. And depending on how bad it is, you will kind of stay dead-ish, if you want to call it dead-ish, for that particular time frame until you survive and revive from that. And it brings me back to a very interesting take on Wolverine in one of the Marvel movies, where he gets shot standing outside the house of Iceman and all of those guys as well, with Rogue and all that, right in the beginning of the Wolverine movies. And he gets shot in the head. And you see him fall and collapse to the floor, but you eventually see the bullet kind of push itself back out, or being pushed out. And I always, the minute I saw that, it just brought me straight back to the Highlander movies and the Highlander series, because that's almost what I imagined. They didn't show those kind of things. They just showed the skin kind of healing itself and reviving itself with a little bit of lightning spark that happens. And you'll see that in another episode that's coming up soon called Deadly Medicine, which you don't want to miss out on. And it's quite interesting to see how this all plays out. But Duncan throws himself into what comes naturally to him, and that is to protect his family and everyone else that's around. He goes out commando style, and he's going completely by himself, a rogue hero trying to save the day and save his loved ones from what is actually happening at the moment. And he starts taking out a couple of the mercenaries or a couple of the gangsters that are there, and they're all heavily armed with semi-automatic rifles and various different kind of weapons as well. And while everything in the courthouse is happening, you've got these guys who are standing guard and making sure that no SWAT team comes in or there's no other interference. The best interference that has happened at the moment is Duncan MacLeod, and he starts to deal with this. What's interesting is how he actually works this. He pretends to play dead. He pretends to, well, he gets caught. That happens, but while he gets caught, he takes out a couple of the guys anyway. But while he gets caught, he gets put, and he challenges them. He doesn't want to sit back and just let this criminal rule what he is allowed to do and what he's not allowed to do, because he's got no fear. His fear at the moment is all about his family, not about himself. So does that happen to you? Are you the kind of person that once you're in an altercation, all your self-fear and self-doubt disappears, and you worry about what's happening next to you and what you're looking after? Because to me, that's what actually happens as well. It doesn't really bother me what is going to happen to me at that particular moment. I would do whatever I can to protect the ones that I love. And that's exactly what Highlander or Duncan MacLeod is doing. So, sorry, I'm diverging quite a bit because I'm quite passionate about this episode. It's quite a fun one. And Duncan, like I said earlier, he gets shot as a proof of the criminal's intent to do harm to whoever is interfering with whatever it is. And then they make their demands of, I want a helicopter, and I want this, kind of the typical story of what does the hostage takers, what can they get from the police? And it's quite interesting to see as well. And also the SWAT team in this episode, they're quite amateur looking, because they've evolved so much since this particular episode in the world of movies, and obviously I'm sure in the world of the police force itself. That the skills and the tactics and the equipment that they've got has just advanced so much compared to what we see in this one. But again, I'm diverging. Let me get back to the point. Duncan is lying on the floor, And everybody realizes that, fine, the risk or the threat of interfering with this particular operation of these gangsters is now over. And Duncan is one of the dead bodies, one of the casualties of what is actually happening. However, they do not know that he's immortal, and he disappears. He gets up and he starts to sneak around the building, trying to find out what he can actually use to elevate his level of aggression to save the people that he needs to save. And he stumbles into a little bit of a janitor's cupboard or storage room, and this is where that little girl is based, and she's staying there so innocently drawing, and she was left there to draw by her granddad or grandfather. Shame it was bringing a daughter to work or granddaughter to work there, I'm sure, or he was just, there was no other place for her to go, so he had to do what he had to do. He had to work, and she was still in a safe environment that he thought. Anyway, so Duncan then takes her under a wing and makes sure that this is another person that he needs to protect, because he is always going to be protecting the weak and the innocent. And this little girl, she must be, what, 6 years old, 5, 6 years old, is a very innocent little child that he is now having to protect and wanting to protect. But what is interesting is what he actually finds as a weapon. He finds one of those trash spikes that you walk around and you pick up rubbish off the floor and put it into a dustbin bag. And it's a nice, long, thin steel, almost like a fencing sword kind of vibe, if you want to call it that. And that becomes his weapon. Deadly as anything I can imagine. Such a clean stab when you do stab with it, because it's got such a sharp tip and a very, very thin steel blade itself. It's not sharp on either side, but it's more of a stabbing weapon. And whipping, I'm sure you can whip someone quite hectically and it'll do damage. But that is his weapon of choice. He doesn't go for the guns. You actually don't really see Duncan favoring firearms, except when he's in any of the battles, the wars, and all those different things. But he definitely favors a blade or his hand-to-hand combat. And that's what you see him using in this episode quite a lot. But yeah, so that's me talking about this movie. I can go on for hours and hours about this episode. And what's interesting is how it evolves, where he almost gets helped and saved by this little girl and this little girl's grandfather. And ultimately, winding down the entire episode, he has to figure out a way to save his family and to let everybody else survive as well, while capturing the bad guys. It also shows a different aspect of Duncan when it comes to the fact that he is, like I say, a mercenary. He will do what he has to do. And in this episode, he does take a couple lives from all of the bad guys. Now, do they deserve it? My first instinct is yes, because they've threatened everyone else and the innocent. And I'm sure Duncan felt the same way, that this has to happen. There's no way around it. He has to make sure that he is going after the people the way that he knows best. And sneakily and quite stealthily, he takes out a lot of the bad guys. And when it comes to Bryan, he confronts him face to face, head on. And it's quite interesting to see how that all plays out. So you must go watch that episode. I'm not going to give you the entire outcome of how it all works, but it's quite a fantastic episode. A very new and interesting one. And like I say, because we actually see Duncan die. It's the first time we've actually seen Duncan ever injured badly and having a fatal wound in a mortal sense. Now, let me just touch on that briefly as well. The way I understood it back then, and obviously I understand it completely different now, was, okay, they die and they just get up and carry on. But now, did they feel pain? Do they feel the death of a normal mortal? How many times do they die as a mortal? And what is it like for them? You know, all these questions kind of go through my mind. And there's something that I learned when I was doing the bodyguarding, which is the 5 whiskeys in a hotel, which is why, what, when, who, and where. And then the H is a how. I put all of those into every single aspect of this particular episode. How did he die? We know how he died. He got shot. When did he die? When he was actually trying to protect. where in a room, and so on and so on. But what makes me think is, what did he feel? What happens to an immortal at that particular moment that they are now dead as a physical being before they come back to life again? Do they ever witness the beyond? Do they ever go up to heaven or go down to hell, so to speak? Or is it just an empty void? Do things just turn off and then turn back on again? How does that work out for them? What is the mechanics that go with that? You tell me what you think, and let's start this conversation, and let's see who has a better understanding or a better way of thinking of what happens. I'd like to think that it's a twofold thing, because I'd like to think that, first of all, they just go into a space where they don't feel pain, they don't feel anything else, and all of a sudden they just wake up again and it's happened again. Or I'd also like to think that each time they do die, they go to their happy space, whether that be heaven or whatever religion they are following. It might be that particular space, giving them reassurance that there is something beyond. And maybe they can also see if there's a way to judge, are they doing the right thing? Are they living a good life as what they currently are? And every one of those deaths that happen throughout this immortal lifespan that they've got before the ultimate one, if they ever reach that, is almost like a confirmation of their life and their choices that they've done. So do they go through these checks? Do they meet the pearly gates and be told, you're making the wrong decision, go back and do something else, and make the right decisions? Or is it something like that as well? Could it be something like that? Anyway, I'm going to leave that up to you guys, just to see what you think, and tell me. I'm interested to know your view and what your thoughts could be when it comes to how an immortal dies during a normal altercation. All right, everybody, just before we do end off, I wanted to let you know that there is something exciting that is coming up. We have got another interview that I'm going to be launching or uploading very soon. I've already had it with him at Stephen Macht, and one of the immortals that Duncan comes across, and you might see the episode coming up very soon. So I'm going to be launching that interview very soon with, or in conjunction with, that episode itself. It's in about 2 or 3 weeks time, so you don't want to miss out on that. So don't forget to like, subscribe, hit the notification bell, start the conversation with us about all the elements that you feel you want to talk about when it comes to each episode, and I'm very interested and curious to see what's going on. Don't forget, I'm also going to be launching something very exciting for you with our Patreon, and also with a Buy Me a Coffee that's going to be linked very soon to all of these videos, and where you can actually be part of all the training, all the stunts, and everything else that we are going to be bringing you and teaching you down the line. Thank you so much, everybody. It's great to see you again, and remember, there can be only one.